Hello, this is the Merry and Bright Pop-Out Angel Ornament, and I'm Kelly with Made to Shine Designs, and we're going to go through the tutorial for how to paint this angel and then also how to put her together. Okay, so the really only detail you're going to have to paint on this angel is these stripes. So, and those aren't too hard. So this is a fairly easy one. Not too much detail. I would say older children would be able to do this one. Maybe not getting the stripes completely perfect, but that would be okay with kids. But this one is not too difficult. Okay, so you need to assemble all of your paint that came in your kit, and then your paintbrushes, your bow, your bead, your twine, all those things. We're gonna completely finish this ornament, put it together, and I'll show you how to do your bead and twine. So let's go ahead and get started. You might also want to get maybe a coffee cup or a cup of water and a paper towel to wipe off your brush while we're going along. Something else you may want to have, it's up to you. I did not put black in the kit because the only thing that needs black is her eyes. So you could do that with a black Sharpie marker if you have that available, or we can do it with a dark brown. I'm gonna do it with dark brown, just so you can see it that way. So whichever way you prefer. Okay, let's start out with, I'm gonna start out with the gray. The gray color is going to be the angel wings that go behind her, and then the background of her skirt. Okay, so for the background of her skirt, this actually comes apart. I cut the stars out separate, and I did that in order so that you would not have that detail of trying to paint those stars inside of, inside of the cutout, just scored like some of the other things that we do. If you have done the angel that has the Christmas trees, I believe that's called the Believe one. Yeah, the Believe angel. You may, if you've done that one, those detail of painting those Christmas trees is pretty difficult. So I cut these out this way so that we wouldn't have to do that. So let's start with the gray. I'm gonna push that out just a little bit out of the way. And I went ahead and popped that out so that we don't have to. You could do it the opposite way and pop the stars out instead, and then just do that background, whichever way you want to do it. But we're gonna grab our brush, and you just need your medium brush. I did not get anything to put my paint on. You can paint just straight out of your little pots that you have, but I am painting out of my regular bottles of paint. So, okay, so got your gray. And then, okay, so most people paint with really too much paint. So don't put too much paint, because then you're gonna get all the glops down inside of where the stars are. And then when you go to put those stars in, it'll push up and not look real cute. And then as best you can, try to keep the paint on the top and not go around on the sides of the ornament. That is one good reason to leave the ornaments inside the cutout before you paint, because then the sides don't get quite as messy. But it's not a huge deal. If paint gets on the sides, you can sand that off. If it's on a straight edge, you can use a little Sharpie marker and cover that up if you don't like it. And another thing, you see, if I just got some on there right now, I'm just going to rub that off like that. If you know you do it while you're painting, you can go ahead and just rub it off. All right, let's see. See, I got quite a bit on that side. It's pretty hard when you're using a paintbrush not to get paint on the sides. I'll just warn you. It's easier if it stays in here, or if you're using a sponge or something like that to paint, you can kind of stay on the top. And I do paint a lot with sponges, but I did not put sponges in your kit. So in these tutorials, I've been using regular paintbrushes, just like you're going to be doing. You can see by doing it inside the pop out how this is keeping me from getting so much paint on the edges. It will still get a little bit in there. It just goes down the sides with the paintbrush, but not a really big deal. I'll get that back in your camera view a little. All right, now I will tell you, first of all, let's go back over any little high spots where you can see the paint is shiny because you got it a little thicker in spots. Go back over with your brush that doesn't have much paint on it anymore and just smooth those out so you have a real even surface. It's just going to look better. Okay, so I started to say what I will tell you is that this is Baltic birch wood. I tell you this in all my videos, but Baltic birch does have a grain to it. It's not a manufactured wood. So whenever you go to paint it, the water from the paint is going to get into the wood and raise the grain. Now, some people don't care about that. They just leave it alone. But it does make it have like a fuzzy feel to it. So on especially larger pieces like this, you may want to give it a little bit of the sand. I get these little handheld sanders, so you can tell this one I use it a lot. And you can buy the round fine sandpaper. But in between the two layers of painting you're putting the base coat paint on, just give it a really, really light sanding. I'm going to go ahead and use my heat gun just so you don't have to wait for the paint to dry. This is such a light color wood that you can even see the grain popping up on this one. And when I touch it, it almost feels like I could get a splinter. You can't, but if I give it a little light sand, then it feels smoother. And it just, the paint tends to look nicer too. All right, so that's good. I'm gonna go ahead and give this another coat. You also see that my paint, I put my paint in my water to clean it off or let it sit while I was doing that sanding. And my paintbrush got a little bit wet. And you see now that this paint's going on even nicer. So that is a trick you can try. If your paint's going on a little too thick or heavy, or you want it to go on smoother, just wet your paintbrush a little bit. Wet it and then dry it off on a paper towel a little. Don't make it sopping wet. But if it's just a little bit wet, it makes that paint flow just a little bit because this is water-based paint. Okay, again, just go back over, make everything look smooth. And 2 coats should be all it needs. It's rare that I can only use 1 coat, hardly ever. It'd be nice if we could do it in just 1 coat, but if you want it to look nice, because after 1, it kind of soaks in that first coat, and you see the grain through the wood, and unless you're wanting more of a stained look, that's probably not going to be what makes you happy. If you do want a stained look, I'll give you a little bit of a trick now that I said that. If I want a painted stain look on something, you can take a baby wipe and put the paint on a baby wipe and just rub it on with the baby wipe, and it'll make it a real translucent stained kind of look. So if you like that look on your ornaments, you could do that. All right, so these 2 are done. I'll give them a little bit of a dry. Will show you that I got the paint a little thick, like right here and right here. And even when I dried it, it makes it kind of bubble up. I'll push that down with my fingers so it looks better. Hopefully yours are still in their pop outs. Sometimes when I cut the originals, they didn't stay in the pop out, so it just makes it easier to paint if they're just in the pop out. Let's do them one at a time. All right, so I'm gonna put those to the side. Let's see. I think that I will do the dark green next. The dark green is the Christmas tree and the leaves on the holly berries that go on her head. All right, the Christmas tree, she's going to be holding it on her chest. So just know that you do not need to paint these because these are going to be her hands, and her hands are in separate pieces over here that are going to get glued on top. So you can just leave those off. Also, this bottom piece is going to be dark brown, and the star, it will be gold, but the star is also a separate piece that's in the other pop out that's going to just get glued up on top. So you can be a little messy when you do up here because it doesn't have to be perfect. That star is going to cover up, overlap a little bit on the top. I would say too, I'm going to go ahead and paint the little pot that the tree is sitting in, just because if you do that now, then when we go to do the brown on top, we'll just need one layer because it'll go over this green. Okay, I'll go back over that a little bit. And then this piece, it'll still be in your pop out, but mine didn't cut the score line, so I had to recut it. That's part of the reason why I do these videos and I paint a sample for you, is that I find all the mistakes that I made when I was cutting and doing the original piece. So, okay, so just lightly, the little score line in between. You kind of want to keep that clean from paint inside of it. So if you do light, you'll be okay. If you do get paint in there, just get something sharp. This is a little Cricut tool, but you could use a straight pen and just run down that middle line and get that excess paint out of there. It keeps that line looking sharp. All right, we're gonna paint. Go ahead and dry that. It's at 700 degrees, so I can't hold it with my finger and dry it. A little too hot. All right, I think I will give the tree a little sand. Okay. Again, I'm gonna have my brush a little wet for this second coat so that that goes on smoother. All right, that's all the green. And this piece is done, except for I gotta put the brown still, so keep that up there. All right, let's do the red next, since I've got these berries here needing some paint. The red is going to be some of the stripes on the angel's body, so that's going to need a little more detail. So for this part, let's use your smaller brush that I provided for you, the detail brush. Now this particular one, like I said, doesn't have any real fine detail, so you should be okay just using the fine brush that I gave you. If by chance it's too hard for you, you're needing that brush to be a little finer, you can cut some of the bristles off and make it an even finer brush like I did with this one. This should be fine though on here. So, okay, let's do the little berries first. Right. She's wanting to come out of here, so I'm just going to go ahead and take her out. Okay, I'm going to do it where I start with the second one. Okay, so the way that I do against lines like this, I'm right-handed, so brushing down is always going to be the easiest, not trying to go up against a line like this. So I do it where the side of the line is to my left, and then paint against it with my right hand. Try to get that where you don't have a lot of gloppy paint, you know, kind of smooth it out. And then what I do is turn her around so that now I'm going to paint this edge again with my right hand and be able to go down and not try to do the other side going up. If that makes sense. If you are left-handed, I'm not left-handed, so I can't really tell you for sure. But you may need to do it the opposite. Hold it to your right. Okay, again, try as best you can to smooth this out. Not getting gloppy areas. Okay, you're going to skip the next one. We're going to do every other one red and white. So skip and go over to this next one. While we're doing this, I'll give you some other advice. If you are wanting to be able to use these with children, you can use paint pens, or you can even use markers for them, just regular markers. Of course, the saturation of the colors is not going to be as dark, but if it's kids, they won't care. But that is a little easier for them to do some of these detailed ones. I'm not a huge fan of paint pens. They're just hard for me to work with. I don't know, some people really like them, but I will tell you that the brands that are very good that you can get on Amazon are the Posca pens, Posca, or Tombow, Tombow. Those are both very good brands. The Tombow ones are really my favorite because they have a tip on them that is like a marker, and you don't have to shake them or press down on them to get the paint to flow. It just comes down just exactly like a marker does. So they're very, very easy and forgiving to be able to use. Whereas the reason I have to use a Posca pen, though, is if you're doing whites, that's the only one I can find that has a really good pigmented white that you can actually use on top of other colors and stuff and have it work out. The tip is a little harder to use. It's a little bigger and harder to use. And Posca is the kind where you have to shake them a lot and then press the marker tip down to get the paint to flow. And what happens is, you know, either it's not flowing at all, or then you press down and you go to try to use, and this huge glob of paint comes out. That's part of the reason why I really don't like using paint pens, but some people swear by them and love them. So maybe you will. All right, let's try that real quick and put a second coat on. I'm going to do the second coat on the berry first. And here we go again on the stripes. I don't bother usually, sometimes I do, doing the sanding. If you were going to want to sand in between this, you would need to go ahead and do the white first, sand the whole thing, and then go back and do the red and the white together. Because if I would, because is going, okay, today not working mouth. If I were going to sand just this red, then I would have to also sand the white later, and then it would mess up the red that I had already done. So what some people do is just base coat everything white at the beginning, sand everything. It's a possibility also, but I don't like having to paint over the white. Just makes it a little harder. Obviously a little easier going the second coat. It's the paint just kind of naturally attracts to itself, so not quite so hard to get like against those edges. I did do the score lines, so the score lines are cut down into the wood a little bit, and so the paint does naturally just want to stop along that score line if you don't force it too much. It does help a lot than if you were trying to just freehand these lines on here. All right, done with those. Let me dry those, and then we're going to go ahead and do the white. The only thing white on this angel is the stripes, and then where it says Merry and Bright. All right, you're just going to do every other stripe that we didn't just do And we'll need to do 2 coats of this also. And just be careful if you're not using your blow dryer, or wait for that to dry, your hand's going to drag into this red and smear, so just be careful with that if you didn't wait for it to dry. Okay, so you may think you're done, but we actually have to do a bottom stripe, even though it doesn't look like there's a stripe there. The reason is because this is the bottom of her skirt, and see, if I put that in place, there's still some area there. So you're going to need to do another stripe down here and fill in this area. And I have this handy so you can see how far to go. It's not, it doesn't matter if you go in too far. I mean, if you want to paint all the way down to the bottom, it's fine. It'll be covered up. But I don't want to paint anything I don't really have to, so. Okay, so it's pretty obvious that that has to have a second coat. But let's go ahead and paint the Marion Bright over here real quick. Do this with light paint, light hand, so that the paint doesn't get gloppy down in all the corners. And then this is just a very thin cutout piece. So you see that mine is very dark. I'm going to try when I cut yours to have it not quite cut so dark, but it may be unavoidable. So it may take 2 or 3 coats. Well, definitely take 2. It may take 3 coats to get this to look nice. I will tell you an even easier thing to do is to use a sponge on stuff like this. This is just one of those little makeup sponges you can get on Amazon. I'm going to do this because with this being so dark, I don't want this to get really gloppy with this paint brush. Okay, I'm probably gonna have to go back and do that a little more of it. All right, let's go back and using the sponge, maybe using my paint. All right, go back and give the stripes their second coat. Just like with the red ones, the second coat goes on much easier and faster. Right. Give very bright some more so that doesn't look like it's gray. Sorry. Oh, that must really be annoying when I hit my camera. Excuse me. All right, let's do the skin tones next. And what I provided for you is a Caucasian skin tone. There's not a problem at all with changing it. If you wanted to go to Walmart or a hobby store and pick up, you know, like maybe a light mocha color or a caramel kind of color, if you wanted to have a more ethnic angel, that is not a problem at all. But if you want to use what's in the kit, It will be a real pale peachy color. And it's okay to go ahead and paint over her eyes. That won't matter. Those are just there to tell you where to put her eyes. And you don't need to worry about painting over those. All right, try to make this line also as sharp as you can. Nothing's going to be covering that one up. Sometimes I'll show you some places so there's going to be something covering up the line between the two, and you can be sloppy. For instance, on the feet here on the bottom, or the bell clapper, whatever you want to look at it, there is going to be that bottom piece of her skirt, so you don't need to worry about how heavy you do this or how messy it is up here. And again, I like to keep these score lines clean in areas like this, so I'm just going to run that through there. Okay, the other part that has to get a flesh tone is her hands. Just these, the separate hands. You don't need to do the hands that are actually on the Christmas tree part. These are going to get glued on top, so that wouldn't show. All right, I'm going to dry these. Backwards to how I did it before. First time I didn't get all the way down to the line. I noticed when I was drying it. Okay, so that's all done. I think the only part that's left is the gold and the dark, or the little tiny bit of dark brown. Let's go ahead and do the dark brown, because that's just a little tiny piece. Go ahead and you get your dark brown out. You're only going to need a tiny bit. And you're just going to do that bottom part of that little pot where the Christmas tree is. Like I said, you probably can do that with just one coat because of the green is already providing the first coat. All right. If you want to go ahead and do it now, you can either use your little fine toothbrush, you can use a toothpick. I have these little stylus tools that I use. This one's got white paint on it. You can get these on Amazon. They come in little kits of different sizes, but they're called a stylus, but I do them because I put polka dots on a lot of things. I'm going to show you some polka dot detailed a little bit that we're going to add on here, but you can do her eyes with the polka dot detail. I'm just going to use this dark brown. Like I said, you could use a Sharpie if you want them to be black, but I'm just going to do it this way. Kind of fill in these little circles real carefully. Not sure if I said for sure, so I'll say it again. If I did, you could use a toothpick also. Something you probably have laying around in your kitchen. Okay. Let me go ahead and dry her eyes so I don't wind up smearing those. And so last will be the gold. Have to do all the stars and behind the stars behind her head. Put her so hopefully it shouldn't get smeared. Okay, so we've got these stars. We've got all the individual little stars from her skirt. If you pulled those apart, there should be 7 of them. Just make sure you have them all. And then you have this piece that's also going to be gold. And I always say too on gold, like what paint lines call gold is really just yellow, like a sunny yellow. If you actually want gold, you would need to buy either something like this, Deco Arts metallic line, that is actually, it actually has sparkle in it, and it's actually, it looks gold. Or you could add gold glitter after you do a layer of the yellow. Use some glitter glue, or even while the paint's wet, you could do it too. It doesn't tend to stick real great unless you push it down in there. But you could add a layer of glue or glitter onto there if you would like some sparkle on all the gold. Kind of nice just to be able to be messy on these that are still stuck in here. Makes it go fast. Okay, now I will tell you on these, you can see her and hold with your hands. You're going to get paint all over your hands. Or grab a piece of masking tape. This is painter's tape. And do this. If it's not still stuck in your, if it's still stuck in your pop out, great. I made the mistake of popping those out. I shouldn't have. All right, so then you can paint them easily without getting paint all over your hands. All right, one more coat of that and we've got all the base painting done. Alrighty, all the base paint's done. We're just gonna do a little detail. I'll show you how to add some things as we're putting it together that can add a little professionalism if you want to. I'll say that one thing I add quite a bit of on my ornaments is distressing around the edges. I just think it adds a lot to make it look a little more professional when you're doing your pieces. So I'll show you how I accomplish that. You would need to purchase some extra materials if that's something you're gonna enjoy doing. But I use these distress crayons from Tim Holtz. They're on Amazon. They actually are just like a crayon. And I also use, find my dauber, the little bingo daubers, finger daubers that you can buy also on Amazon in bulk. But you put a little bit of this on, and then you can go around the edges of whatever it is that you want to distress. So for instance, this star, I'm just very lightly going around the very edge, and you can see already how it just adds a little bit of distinction, adds just some character to it, I guess. I just go around these edges. This is going to be behind her head. There's no reason to do this. Another place I really like to make sure and distress is around any place that has like the flesh tone that's going to be against something else. So for instance, the angel's face, I'm going to go all the way around her because her head is going to be in front of that star that we just distressed, and it'll make her head kind of stand out a little more. We're also going to rosy her cheeks a little bit. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and then her edges of her hands. Go ahead and pop those out. I just do the back edges of her hands. Right there. Excuse me while I get the one that I just dropped down here. Some people like to distress around flesh, Caucasian flesh tones with red. I just like using this brown. All right, what did I say? Oh, the pink, the cheeks. Okay, so let's do that. What you'll need is your Q-tip that was in your kit. And I took one out, and now I don't see it here, so I'm going to get another one. Okay, and you should still have your red. Get your red paint, and then you're going to need a paper towel or something to rub off some paint. And you're going to get a little red on your Q-tip, and then just rub almost all of it off. Or really, it's going to feel like you rub all of it off. So that when you're rubbing, you're barely getting any color on there when you're rubbing, okay? And you might want to practice on this a little bit, maybe on a piece of the wood that is not on the angel, just to practice. But you're just very lightly going to start kind of scrubbing in a circle. And believe it or not, there's enough red left on that Q-tip that you're going to start seeing some color popping through. Okay, you see that? It's starting to come. You just want a real light amount, and flip it over and do the same on the other side. You just keep on scrubbing until you like the layer of color that you get. Okay. See, you get that really cute little, barely there, little cheeks. And then I usually go around and I add some white dots just for a little detail all around. You probably see that in the picture if you have one. There's also, if you like it, there is some distressing around all the gray areas with black. So let me get my black Tim Holtz crayon and show you how I did that. The other part, the distressing with the white, you see, we can do with the paint that you have. I'll show you that in just a moment. But let's go ahead. I'll show you, if you choose to purchase these from Amazon, you can add some black detail around all these gray areas. All right. Now for the white, there's some white distressing around the Christmas tree. I think that that's it. Yeah, just around the Christmas tree. You can actually do that with your brush. So let's take your the larger brush, the medium bristle brush. Dry it off as much as you can. I'm gonna get that paper towel again that we had with the red. Get a little white on your brush and do the same thing. Rub it off where you hardly have any on there. This is gonna be a little harder because this brush is wet. But then just go along the edges. Yeah, it's not gonna work because it's too wet. Hold on. Okay, there we go. If you can get it where it's just kind of dryly, what we call a dry brush technique, where it's just barely any paint on there, and then just very lightly brush it on, you're going to get that kind of snowy looking effect. You could also do it if you do get some of the daubers, you can do that. That's usually what I do, is I would use just a little bit of paint on one of those daubers. But I was going to show you that you can do it with a paintbrush. And if by chance you get it too dark, you're, oh, I've ruined it. No, you haven't. Just go back with your green, and you can, you know, take your green back on your paintbrush and go back over that real lightly again until you get that effect that you want. It's just paint. I always tell people it's just paint. It can be fixed. Okay. So we just have a little bit of that white on there. Now what goes on the front of this is the Merry and Bright, the little Merry and Bright words. Now popping out the rest of your stuff that you haven't, the stars should pop out pretty easily. Anything else that you haven't popped out should pop out easily. The Merry and Bright, be very careful how you pop out because it's very tiny writing and very delicate. You might want to just make sure it's cut through all the way on the back. Sometimes you can tell where it's attached and give yourself a little more pressure where it's actually attached and not put pressure where you don't need to. This is definitely the negative of these pop-outs, is getting the words out. Okay, there we go. Mine was attached up here at the top of the R's, so probably yours are too. All right. So this gets glued on here. Be very light with your glue. The glue that you have is a wood glue, so it's going to be a lot more forgiving than the super glue that I use, but I don't want you to have to wait for me. The problem is I was doing another ornament and there was a mistake and I was stuck because I already put something down in the wrong order. You won't have that happen. If you mess up, you just pop it back up. It takes a while to dry. All right, so I'm going to just glue the Merry and Bright on the front. And then I want one of these stars. These got very gloppy because I was being so fast to paint them. I'm just going to try to scrape off some of those globs. All right, with a little drop of glue. A little glue goes a long way, guys. You can even dab it off on a paper towel before you put it on if you think you've got too much. It does dry clear, even your wood glue, but it dries shiny. So if you put too much, it squirts out the sides. You're going to be able to see it. And with the hands, there's a flat part and a rounded part. The flat part is the bottom. So this is the left side. Oh my word. Cannot hold on to these hands today. Try this again. I'm going to try putting the glue on here this time. Right. Now let's go ahead and pop on the bottom of her skirt. This just goes on right along the bottom edge of the skirt. push it against your thumbs to line it up properly. Right, and then you're going to pop in all of those little stars. If you're picky, you know, about about it looking really nice, you might want to make sure that I cut these with the grain. Let's see, these are doing the grain running up and down. So, you know, if you want your grain to run the same way, then just make sure that when you pop them in, it's the grain's going up and down. It'll also probably make sure that there's a better fit because that's the way that they were cut originally. But they may fit other ways. And that's the easiest thing, just put a drop of glue down on the bottom. And then just pop these in. This one, the grain's going this way. This way. Right? Then I'm going to need to put what's behind her head. Okay, so this goes onto here. The top of the arch is going to line up. You may have a score line. For some reason, my score line didn't cut on this one, but you should. I'm sorry, I'm doing that backwards. You should have a score line that goes across here that shows you exactly where to put her. But if not, if this just doesn't have a score line, then you would make it go straight across at this point on her shoulder. So I'm going to put paint here. If you have a score line, put the paint inside the score line there. It'll let you know exactly where to put that paint. It also helps you make sure that this is even straight. All right. And then this piece goes behind her head. I'm going to put the glue on behind her head. See, in the back of this reminds me, if you want to, you can paint the backs of these. Remember I was talking about the paint staining technique. That's a good thing to do on the backs, like use your red or your gold or whatever with a baby wipe and just wipe it over. It at least makes it look a little more finished without having to go to the detail of painting everything individually. Okay, these little stars go on her wings. Even though this angel says merry and bright, I think that she's a very patriotic looking angel. She almost looks like a 4th of July kind of angel. All right, and then a little glue on the back of merry and bright. And I always make the tree a little crooked. I just think that looks cute. You can put it straight if you like. And as far as detail, you can, like I said, use a toothpick, or you can, if you want to get one of these styluses, or you can use the backside of your paint brush, whichever you prefer. But I like to just add a little white dot detail in places. I do one up here. And if you do it that way, what you just showed me do, like the first one is going to be bigger, and then they get smaller as you go down graduated, which looks kind of cute too. Rather than reloading your paint over here, we're just kind of accentuating these, the points of the starting out to paint there. I don't have much white left over here, so I gotta make sure I've got enough paint as I do this. So each of the star tips. Okay, I also do, my granddaughter yesterday when she was watching me this, it looks like a freckles, but I put a little dot up here at the top of her cheeks. Then, you know, what we're missing is, there we are, her little crown of ivy here. Right about that. You're probably saying, where do we put the ivy? Okay, and I give each of these little berries a little dot. I put a little dot on the star. And then some here on the stripes on her dress. All right, I think that's it. So we can, let me let those dry a little bit, and then I can show you putting the ribbon on. All right, you should have picked out, that was smart, you should have picked out a bow and a bead. For all my samples, I'm just using this plain black and white gingham and just a plain wood bead. But you should also have a piece of twine in your supply kit. Oh, I have my scissors. All right, you're going to fold your twine in half. Bring the two bottom ends together and hold on to where it's folded. And then the folded end, you're going to put it through the top hole. Then bring that through in this loop here. You're going to take the other ends and put them through that hole so that you wind up with this little loop that you can put your finger in. You're actually going to put the bow in there and then cinch that down. You kind of have to adjust it a little as you bring it down because it makes it twist around. But pull that as tight as you can. Then you're going to add the bead, and you may need to trim the edges and you know, get all the fuzzies off to be able to get it through here. Put that through, and then you want to tie a knot at the top of the bead as close to the bead and as tight against the bead as you can. So you want to tie it and then like slide it down and pull it as tight as you can right there. And then I use 3 fingers and tie another knot. And those 3 fingers are going to be the area where you'll be able to hang it on your tree. Okay, so 3 fingers and tie that. I like for all of mine to be pretty uniform in the distance, but it's not crucial for you. All right, so there you have it. So whatever bow and bead you picked out, that should have secured them on there, and you have the Merry and Bright Angel. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed.